Hi, my name is Blaine Zodu, and this is my oral presentation for JTC 300. I'm doing a how-to technical manual on how to perform an Ethiopian coffee ceremony. So I'm going to start by giving a little background. Coffees that are grown in Ethiopia are typically named based on the region that they grow in, the most popular variety being Yirgucha, which is in the southern region of Italy. It's also the type that I have here with me. So they are typically roasted, beginning with a mat'ad, also known as a baret mat'ad, which is a roasting plate. This is shaken over a hot stove. When it's roasting, it begins with this green variety, and when it's finished, becomes this dark medium roast, darker color beans. The smoke that is produced when you've shaken this over the stove is said to keep bad spirits away, so this is taken around the room, everyone wafts it in their face and enjoy the fragrance and also keep bad spirits away. Folklore has it. So this is also typically the time when you burn incense in this traditional clay pot, and that just adds to the aroma and the fragrances in the room. So these beans are hand crushed using a mortar and pestle, which I sadly don't have with me, and these are called a makecha and a zenzena. And these ground beans are then brewed in a clay pot known as a jebana, which I have right here. And this is when you can add spices such as cloves or cinnamon just to bring out a little more of the natural flavors. And it is placed on a mat'ad, which is this woven straw holder I have here, until the coffee can settle and separate. It's then served on a rekabat, which is this low table I have here with me, and served in these little cups known as sinis, just small servings because they are very strong brews of coffee. Traditionally, they are only served using sugar, never milk, and out in the countryside, they sometimes use salt. Each ceremony is performed on a guzgwaze, which is this long grass-skirted cloth I have here with me. Traditionally in Ethiopia, they have actual grass, but this is kind of the Americanized version of it. And this entire ceremony is usually performed on the ground. Since I'm the coffee preparer, I'd be sitting low on a low wooden stool, but for the sake of this presentation, I'm up on a table. Let's see here. So the significance of the bunna ceremony, bunna being the Ethiopian coffee, it is traditionally served, the oldest meal in the room is served first, and it is the youngest child in the room that serves everybody. And this kind of signifies a tying together of generations, if you will. And typically 3 rounds of coffee are served, the first being abo, the second tuna, and the third being baraka. And you can have either 1 or 3, but it's bad luck to have only 2. So the significance of this, why this ties into our culture, it's a time when people, friends, family, neighbors alike, all gather in this daily ceremony, and this is when things like news and politics and gossip on the street are discussed, and it's just a time for people to come together and share with one another and enjoy one another's company. So just to give you a little brief history, oh, and by the way, I am wearing a traditional Ethiopian dress, which you would wear to perform this ceremony. So this coffee bean was first discovered in 800 AD in Ethiopia by a goat herder named Kaldi. He saw his goats eating these unfamiliar red berries and saw that they were getting hyperactive energy from it, so he tried it himself, and he realized these beans keep you awake and alert, and so he ran and told his village, and thus we have the birth of coffee. So it traveled across the Red Sea to Arabian monks, where they, in 13th century, tried roasting the beans into a brew so that they could drink it. And that was the first time this had happened for coffee. Oh, excuse me, that was 180, not 13th century. My mistake. But it was in 13th century that coffee became a very integral part of the Islamic religion, because they realized that drinking this brew gave them lots of energy. It kept them awake during long prayers. And so At this point, it's only in Africa and Arabia, but it was smuggled out, and by the 1600s, it found its way to Europe, and from there it went transatlantic to Latin America and finally North America, which it didn't become popularized until around after the Boston Tea Party. And today, coffee is the second most valuable traded commodity in the entire world, with an estimated 2.25 billion cups consumed worldwide. The word coffee itself has roots in many different languages. It gathered on its migration around the world. It started with kawa in Yemen, which translates to a romantic term for wine, to kahve, which is Turkish, kofi in Dutch, and finally coffee, which is translated into English. So, to begin with the growth of the coffee, it only grows in typically tropical or subtropical climates year-round. The lower the altitude, the warmer the climate, which means the beans ripen faster. And they grow typically in nurseries during their first year and grow to be about 18 to 24 inches before being moved to a farm where they're planted. They can grow up to 20 feet, but typically on average 8 to 10, or 10 to 12 8 to 10 feet tall, but they don't start producing coffee until about 4 to 5 years in. Flowers bloom before the green cherries appear, and each cherry contains about 2 coffee seeds. And these coffee seeds they start beginning at green, they change to yellow, and finally deep red, indicating that they are ripe. So these ripened plants, beans, can be either replanted for the next year's harvest, or they can be harvested and made into coffee for production. So there's typically 3 to 7 pickings in one harvest because of the different rates at which beans can ripen, and it's about the middle harvest pickings that are the most flavorful and the most popular. They have to be depulped within 24 hours of being harvested, or else they get this nasty, rotten flavor. The seeds are separated from the skin and flesh because the red beans have many layers to them. They can be fermented anywhere from 4 hours to 3 days, and this is when the natural sugars get dissolved into liquid form. They are then washed and dried for anywhere to 3 to 4 days, and they become these dried coffee seeds. So they're then roasted, and we don't roast to bring out more caffeinated flavors. More caffeine. We want to bring out more flavors instead. So the range of roasts goes from 0 to 100 according to the Agtron rating system, 0 being darkest and 100 being the lightest. Light roasts are the most acidic and the most caffeinated form of coffee. Medium roast are usually what we try and go for in our Ethiopian coffee ceremony. They're the most balanced flavor, the more body than a light roast, and the best example of what that bean tastes like without any interfering flavors. Dark roast, the beans tend to be oily. They give it like a more smoky taste, and those have the least caffeine in them. So just to wrap things all up, the coffee ceremony is a very important and integral part of Ethiopian ceremony and traditions. It's now our leading cash crop and has sustained our economy for years on end. So yeah, this is my coffee ceremony. I've grown up with it my whole life. It's very important to me, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.